have to be in debt. If they're not in debt, then they're not being a lucrative country or nation or whatever it should be.
That's their claim. That's their claim. That's not the fact.
Okay.
Okay.
That's why I'm
Back up. Back up. Back up. Right? Okay.
Repeat.
No, I'm gonna go to questions. No questions. They got enough on it. They got that.
Well, let's go with his question that he stated.
Well, what about the taxes?
Yeah.
Well, you just said you answered your question. You answered your question.
Yeah.
And Todd said it, and that was it. That's
This
it.
is for,
Let's get
this
it
we
for-
back on. We back on.
Yes. Any other questions online?
Let's continue
Here's
the
the
question
question.
for the people.
We got a question right here.
Okay.
Got a question right here.
That's a question again. So that way.
So basically, I'm trying to get a general understanding of how the tax thing works. So you're saying that we are paying taxes, so they can pay taxes to France, Spain, and all the other nations that they're obligated to pay taxes to.
Yes. Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Can I interject?
Yes. That's really good, guys.
United States Code, subsection 95, subsection A and B indicates that the debts that were created by them belong to them and not to the people. This is why a lot of people who understand what's been going on have used that to discharge, or this is where the whole argument of discharging set-offs. Because this is aside from the fact that, which Shem mentioned before, just like under the mortgage game that they set up in 1913, that as soon as you sign, basically, they're using your signature to go into the Sister QV trust. So the real deal of it is, it's really already paid.
That's right.
All of them already paid.
Segregation.
Yes.
It's called equitable segregation.
Yes.
That's why when they created the money game, the Supreme Court says money is a Ponzi.
Yes.
Now they call it, when they use the word Ponzi, that means a fraud. It's a scam. Now, when you sign a mortgage contract, the issuer of the instrument is drawn upon the financial institution. It's no different than a courtroom when they get a bill of attainder or an instrument, charging a warrant. It's the same thing. A promissory note, you endorse it, you don't hold it. See, when you endorse an instrument under UCC or Article 3, the person that's endorsed the instrument, that's a holder of the instrument, is the holder in due course and have a right to enforce the instrument. You just don't know how to enforce the instrument and discharge the debt. And that's why the equitable subrogation is there for you to step back in the shoes of the creditor, because you are considered a creditor, and discharge the debt. And the courts, see, the problem is that because of the fraud, like David Wayne Miller said, because of so many of the judicial officers and clerks and state officers, police, sheriffs, and everybody have now created a hedge fund to live live off the money, the medium, which is for credit, and they call it as a slice of the pie. So they're like, this is the only way we can survive in this structure. This is why I say the structure is very important, because they're only doing this because the structure is set up and they can take care of their needs. Now, until we put a structure up to take care of their needs, once we put the structure up to take care of their needs in civics, then they're held liable now, they're accountable now. Because there's something else to look to. I don't have to go in another man and woman's house when I built my house to fix my roof, my windows, and it's cold outside raining and I got a table to bed. While I'm sitting in somebody else's house. Doesn't make any sense. Dealing with nature. So the problem is, they set a statute that called equitable surrogation. They just don't teach everybody that mastery. So they keep the fraud going on because they're making the system stay up so that people can be bound, imprisonated, stripped of their liberty, their freedom, their integrity, their prosperity, into a system where that now they paying your own damn people to oppress you because they now in a mental retardation state, consciously, mentally. They don't know what they're doing. All in the survey of this, I got to eat, like a man selling poison to his people. Man, I got to eat. I don't care about that nigga shooting a needle on his arm. I don't care about that woman. I ain't got nothing to do with that. This is how the world is. I got to eat. That's what we deal with. That psychological mentality. And you know what? They've been trained under this, indoctrinated, and not only that, the Albions been deprived of a true history teaching about our people. So now the Albion's not even really that blame, these young Albions. They not even really to blame, because they not being taught the true science. They being lied to too. And then they finding out, they repenting. They say, oh, repent. I didn't know. You want to look at the fraud? Look at your structure. There you go. You said, who did this? Point to the state of origin. They did it. Point to the school system, indoctrination centers, institutions. They did it. All to take away, to bring you into a status. That way, if they can bring you there, they can take the land and cultivate the land and invest it. And then when they invest it, they can turn around and don't share nothing with you. Now, I'm going to show you something ties right across the western tide. Look at this here, Todd. Look at all this pretty water we got. We can't even go out. And you're going to these Europeans off the coast of their land fishing, getting lobsters and shrimp. We can't do nothing. Do you see this? I got a right to say, I'm going down to my boat, the school kid, I'm going to Delaware, I'm going to be going with Father. I can't do that. You go to Coast Guard. Hey! You know why he's doing that? Because he's indoctrinated. He don't know no law. He just know, I go along for the paycheck as he go along. That's it. Next question.
Got a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Dealing with taxes, I believe that before we even get into the codes of the United States and their commercial codes, even though when we go into their codes and get, taxes this and this or whatever, taxes straightened out, I believe it's the 1856 treaty that says they're not supposed to, we're not supposed to tax them anyway, and they're not supposed to tax us. So even before we get into the codes, we go to the treaties first. Is that correct?
That's absolutely right. And I'm going to take it further. The tax didn't come to assessment of an abandoned state what Todd is talking about. So let me get deep into this. In Todd's book, something up made important. What happened is they're making an adverse possession and they doing what you call a chief law and feudalism. They're taking the state and saying it's abandoned. So you got France, Spain, and Great Britain. Ain't no Moors here. We'll use the land and give you some money. To operate, extend our jurisdictional arm. Because the Moors are dead on this side of the world. Why the Moors are dead? Because you have indoctrinated the Moors. You didn't do this in the 19th century. You indoctrinated the Moors after this act was signed. Because you still got things listing the Moors, to use the word Moor, on government schools, you're going to set from white, black, and Moors. Why is the word Moor there? They came up, when the Rockefellers seen that, and all the bankers of Europe seen that it would be a better investment to allow the United States to do what they're doing, because the United States is our flunky, pay flunky. I'm sorry. They pay flunky corporation. Where all of them that become senators go to a private society and get pledged. I'm sorry. They run their own private society.
In support of what Shem is saying right now, for people to look at this, just like you have the Act of Algiers 1906, that correlates with that letter to Roots 1906, and they're talking about the only way the Moors lost their nationality is through naturalization.
That's called 59 counties.
It's exactly what you were saying earlier.
That's right.
But then the correlation of even the year shows you that the point that you're making now was apparently that people were questioning that situation at that time. That was the nature of that letter to Secretary Roots.
Right. And see, they didn't have to even do this. All they would have to do is they could incorporate it and work with the Moors and just dealt with their citizens, and we dealt with our nationals. But what happened is, when they lost, this has made them really push after. You notice that King started the segregation in schools after 1956, that they lost jurisdiction. Then they turned from United States citizens and white. You notice when he said, I'm gonna protect the white man. I don't protect your citizens of the United States. I don't protect citizens of the state. He said, I protect the Americans. We Americans. He's not using white. You see the far now? You're using American. Why are you using American? Because you're claiming to be a Moor subject. And you step in our shoes, doing administrative, the executive, all that stuff that's in the treaties and the acts in our place. And that's a fraud. And I caught that. I see what they're doing. Just work with us. We ain't nobody against you. Ain't nobody around trying to kill your system. Just not gonna let you do our people like. Let me say something. Let me say something. This go for preachers, imams and stuff. Y'all need to stop and invoke and stop going along with this going on right here. I'm serious. This is the problem. You're not teaching this, and you have the power to teach this in your church, because the church is a congregation. It's a society, therefore it's a nation. The mosques, the temples, carry the society to help the people. Teach them the truth.